Now that the elections are over, the dust is settling a little bit. Today is the 7th of November. I kind of recorded a video the day after because I was like, oh my God, what's going on? It was a bit of a shock and it was crazy. But I was half asleep and I didn't sleep the night before, and I'll explain why. And I thought, you know what? Let's just give it a rest, think about it a little bit. And boy, oh boy, America is in a really bad place today, economically speaking, despite the fact that the arguments that I'm seeing about why people voted for Trump and not for Kamala Harris, because it was all about the economy. I think there was an example that somebody used in the British media somewhere, that they asked this guy in one of the swing states why he voted for Trump. And he was saying, I've been voting for Democrats my entire life, but this time, did you know that 4 years ago, I could buy 12 eggs for $2, but now I have to pay $5. So I'm voting for Trump. That's very interesting. And in fact, it sounds funny, but he has a point. You see, if you have an economy that indeed statistically is doing very well, you've got all the right numbers, all the numbers going up, etc., etc. But if it benefits people like me and not the rest of the population, then guess what? The rest of the population will not give a flying shit about how amazing the economy is. That's the kind of problem, in fact, we had here in the UK with the Conservative Party, because they were going on about, hey, what are you talking about? The economy is fantastic. What are you talking about? And the Labour Party was saying, actually, a really good message is that, well, actually, the economy is working for the billionaires, not for the working people. Amen to that. Is if the economy is screwing over most of the population, whatever are the statistics, the population will retaliate. And they did. So that is, I think, yes, Biden has introduced really good policies. And yes, the economy arguably is doing a lot better under his leadership than anybody else in the past, apparently. But if people don't feel it, something is wrong. The system has failed. But I'm going to explain to you why I believe the American economy now is in a very serious situation as a direct result of this vote. And yes, some people say, but the markets went up. I'm coming to that. Bear with me. Okay? Bear with me. But what I'm going to say is the reason why I actually didn't sleep very much on the election night, not because I was watching the elections. Oh no, because we had loads of messaging going on amongst tech entrepreneurs in the UK, Europe, even in Asia. Because this is an opportunity for the European tech sector to rise up big time. Now, right off the bat, I have to say, I was very, very disappointed when I saw the results in the morning, because I did manage to get some sleep, like a couple of hours, because I couldn't handle it anymore. And I was like, oh, wow, you guys basically voted for the manosphere rather than for women's rights. Yeah. I think we need to call a spade a spade. And despite the fact, looking at the data, apparently only 53% of Kamala Harris's voters were women, apparently, which is fairly low turnout despite what's at stake. That doesn't change the fact that basically the manosphere won, women's rights lost. And I think that's horrific. I think that's something that the American society as a whole will have to think about. And am I even going to be bringing political experts to talk about this? Because I'm not a political expert. I'm very much in touch with politics from the point of view of a business owner, tech entrepreneur, because obviously I need to know what policies are going to be emerging from new governments, because a lot of these policies, be it economics, immigration, has an impact on how companies operate. So I have to be absolutely aware of what's going on and the impact this would have on my company. Why do I say that I think the American economy is absolutely screwed? Well, because it's history repeating itself. Now, I talked about this very point about 2 months ago on this video here, where I was talking about how Project 2025 and the MAGA movement as a whole really kind of going to destroy AI and, in fact, create the AI dystopia, rather than this perceived or this imaginary AI utopia that everybody's talking about. Definitely, it's not going to be a good outcome. Certainly, I think what we're going to see right now is going to be basically what I predicted and talked about 2 months ago. Because if you noticed, the Trump campaign did not talk about AI at all. I mean, the most techie thing I've heard him say was something along the lines, I like the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is good. Elon! And that's as far as it went. Oh, God. But the reality is, I think now AI is in a really, really precarious situation as a market, because we're not going to be seeing AI that actually serves humanity anymore, but AI that serves the shareholders and basically some surveillance capitalism bullshit. When I say bullshit, I don't mean that it's not real. I mean bullshit as in it's just not particularly useful for anybody apart from the people who obviously use it for themselves. Oh my goodness. So why do I say this? Because I described in that video that this is kind of like the Brexit moment of the United States. And I've had a few conversations where people say, oh, Tim, but 2016 Donald Trump was the Brexit moment. Yes and no. The messaging was the same. Yes. But I suppose because of the pandemic, it didn't really give Trump enough time or attention for him to implement the weird policies, the crazy policies that he wanted to implement. And then, of course, after that, Biden took over and that kind of stifled the whole thing. So yes, from the historical perspective, because Brexit happened in 2016 as well here in the UK, but we didn't have any disruption. So even though we had the pandemic, the Conservative Party that brought us Brexit basically was still in power and continued to be in power, even though under multiple other prime ministers beyond Boris Johnson, because that's how our system works here in the UK. So it's a parliamentary democracy. So the party that is in power can literally change the leader without any general election. And we basically can have as many prime ministers as we like within the same parliament. And that's exactly what happened. So the party in power that brought us Brexit stayed in power. In fact, we had them for 14 years. So that's a very big caveat. Yes, Trump just didn't have the time to do it. I fully agree. But now he has the time. He has complete power. The Republicans are basically, according to the data right now, they've taken over the House as well. So he basically totally unhinged. The Republicans are unhinged. Project 2025 architects are unhinged. It's all basically for the taking now. That's it. So that's exactly what we had. Because post-Brexit, the Conservatives had a massive landslide in the elections, right? Under Boris Johnson. They completely controlled Parliament. They've controlled everything. So basically, they were unhinged. Nothing could stop them at all. At all. And this is exactly what's going to happen, because what we've been through here in the UK with Brexit, the policies and the ideology are identical to what the MAGA movement and the Project 2025 architects want America to go through. And that will tank your economy, because it tanked our economy. Now, I know some of you will say, but Tim, these are two very different economies. The UK has a lot of dependency on Europe, and we basically ripped ourselves out of Europe despite the fact that we've got shared infrastructure, shared trade policies, etc. So America doesn't have that level of dependency, 100%. And I would add to that even that the American economy is so big and so powerful that even when it starts falling and is going to screw people over big time, it will still be the largest economy in the world. But the people who will lose out are the very people that voted for MAGA. And I'm afraid even beyond that, it's going to be a massive, massive catastrophe, economic catastrophe for the American people, because it's been the case in here. And one of the key reasons for that, and I'm going to share with you this report, is the fact that the very same people who architected Project 2025 are the same people that brought us Brexit and architected Brexit, funded Boris Johnson. And also, after Boris Johnson, we had the infamous shortest serving prime minister in history, Liz Truss. She was only prime minister for 2 weeks. And the only reason she lasted that long, because the first week, the Queen died. So if it wasn't for our Queen's death, she probably would have lasted like a week max. I mean, that's how bad she was. And she was the absolute representation of these forces, because Boris Johnson was kind of like a bit of a wishy-washy, right? She was the absolute, a mold that was created by these people and parachuted into Parliament. And within 24 hours after she announced the budget, which is basically the same stuff that Donald Trump is promising and Project 2025 are promising, within 24 hours, the markets collapsed. The markets didn't like it. Okay? So this article that I want to share with you from a very well-known Substack newsletter called Democracy for Sale by two very well-known investigative journalists, Max Colbert and Peter Gogigan, where they talked about, and I titled here, Revealed, Trump campaigns received $45 million from Tufton Street donors. Now, for those who don't know, Tufton Street is this area in London that is basically occupied by all these dodgy political think tanks that basically are funded by God knows who. Nobody knows who funds them. But they're the ones who are, anti-immigration, anti-green tech, pro-petrol, pro-tobacco, these sort of people. And they do exist in America as well. but they're very, very influential here in the UK. They're very powerful, very well funded. And like I said, they're the ones that absolutely pushed the whole Brexit narrative, and they pushed Liz Truss's narrative. And look where we are. So it's the same people who have funded the MAGA movement and funded the Project 2025. And they basically want to impose the same policy onto America. So in other words, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, most likely it is a duck. So the idea that the two big projects that we had here in the UK failed catastrophically, Brexit and Liz Truss economics, right? Or Trussonomics. Third time isn't going to be the charm here because they're pushing the same thing, exactly the same thing. So I'm afraid that the American economy is fucked, to put it mildly. And please don't come back at me, like I said earlier, and start telling me, Tim, you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. Come to me after 4 years and tell me that I'm wrong. If I am, look, I'm a scientist. I'll be the first person to put my hands up and say, all right, cool, I'm wrong. I got this wrong. My bad, right? The data and stuff basically didn't work well for me this time. But I really don't think it's going to be wrong. Because if you look at Project 2025, and I listed it, by the way, in the other video that I've just mentioned, so I'm not going to go through it in here, but I've listed everything in there. And like I said, it's almost a carbon print of what we had here with Brexit, apart from the abortion thing. Thankfully, that wasn't the case here. But yeah, I mean, that's basically what I have to say about that. I mean, it's really bad news. And of course, from the point of view of AI and tech, as you know, for those who follow me and follow our podcast here, we push for regulation. And what these guys want is zero regulation. And the thing that I'm very concerned about, what I called out in the other video, which is basically the key difference between what you guys have now in America have right now and what we had with Brexit and Liz Truss, is that we did not have the tech billionaires funding this movement. This time we do. We've got two of the largest Silicon Valley VCs basically supporting the MAGA movement. Again, I mentioned them in the other video. Of course, we're talking about the Stoughton Street people and all of the other American, sort of similar American entities. And all of them want elimination of regulation. Now, I've seen it on LinkedIn because we have a very active discussions on LinkedIn, and make sure you look me up and follow me there as well so you can be involved. And I get all these people that go on about, oh my God, but regulation is going to stifle innovation. Oh my God, but please somebody think about the innovation. Oh my God, which for me, again, I've said this so many times, I'm going to say it again. I'll continue saying it because obviously some people are either too stupid to listen or choose not to listen. Yeah, I said it. Man, nothing stifles innovation. Nothing stifles innovation. Because that's the whole point of innovation. I mean, innovation is about breaking through barriers. So whatever barriers that are out there, be it regulatory barriers or economic barriers or whatever kind of barriers, you innovate and you use creative thinking, scientific methodology, R&D, etc., to break these barriers and come up with new ideas that basically solve that problem. It's about dealing with a challenge. So if you have a challenge, you creatively come up with something new to deal with that challenge. If there's no challenge, what in the hell are you going to be creating? I mean, if anything could stifle innovation today, guess what? We would still be living in caves. Right? Think about it. So this whole notion about, we need freedom to innovate. We have freedom to innovate. What the hell are you talking about? I mean, as a biomedical scientist, the medical industry has very, very dark background. I mean, long time ago, people like me would be experimenting on humans. We would, for those who are very anti-abortion campaigners, well, guess what? In medical fields back in the very, very, very old days, we could go and take your babies and do experiments on them. Yeah, Google it. We could do that. Not to mention the endless, relentless animal testing over many, many decades and centuries. But regulation said, no, that's wrong. It's unethical. Find a different way. So as a result of that, one of the reasons, in fact, how I discovered AI is to say, well, okay, how do we use what is called in silico approach? Basically, how do you use IT, computer science to simulate biological systems so you don't have to test on biological systems? This is how I discovered AI in the 90s, where we used data mining techniques and algorithms, in my case, to decode animal genomes. Some of my friends were using the same techniques to visualize molecular structures of proteins so that we can understand the mysteries of protein folding that will help us understand metabolism and how do we build drugs, for example. This is why in silico and bioinformatics were created, because these regulations basically said, well, no, guys, you can't do experiments on babies. Please don't do that. Don't do experiments on animals, because that's a bad thing. That's unethical. It's horrible. All right. Yeah, we agree. Fair enough. That's bad. So what do? We didn't go like, oh my God, but this is stifling our innovation. Shit. No, we said, okay, that's the challenge. We have to figure out, how do we experiment on biological systems if we cannot experiment on biological systems? Okay, let's use AI and technology to simulate it. Kaboom, here we are. I mean, do I need to say more? So as an innovator, when somebody tells me that regulations stifle innovation, then with all due respect, you haven't got a fucking clue what you're talking about, because you obviously never innovated. Or you've got other nefarious ideas. You're using that as an excuse so you can have unhinged power and AI supremacy in a way that perhaps China has, whereby they are somewhat, compared to what we have here, less ethical. They are much more invasive from your privacy point of view as a user. Maybe that's what you want. Because let's have a look at regulations, shall we? So they talk about, we've got so much regulation that controls AI. Oh my God, somebody think about the AI, please. Right. So you telling me it's the same regulation that could not regulate social media, could not regulate the AI algorithms that are used for content recommendations, etc., which basically are the key reasons why many millions of children around the world are suffering mentally. Many of them even committed suicide. I'm sorry, trigger warning. Yes. You mean these same regulations that basically could not stop that from happening? So you want less of that so you can have more of damage? I mean, this is the bullshit. I'm very angry about that, because this, apart from the fact that it's inhumane, and you might be saying, oh, Tim, I don't care so long as it doesn't impact me. Well, if you care more about AI, because again, I see people on LinkedIn that they love AI. Oh, we love AI so much. We love AI so much. I don't need to talk to people. I can just talk to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is like my best friend. You need to get out more. Seriously. I mean, get out more. But for these people, well, guess what? I love AI too. I know some people describe me as the anti-AI entrepreneur. I'm not anti-AI. I'm very pro-AI. I didn't spend my life since the 1990s, basically dedicated my life working with AI if I didn't love AI. Of course, I freaking love AI. And because I love AI, I am telling you, these people are going to destroy AI. They're going to destroy AI, because we end up in a situation where we're going to live in a world of a AI-generated slop training sloppy AI that creates more AI-generated slop, generating more shitty AI models. I've proven it through my company with our customers that when you deploy regulated AI models, you are literally building smarter models. Using the example that I've just highlighted with science, when we had these challenges, we had to come up with new ideas. I'll give you a real example with my company, in fact. Back in the day, we were still figuring out what sort of algorithms can we build for nebulae, how do we launch nebulae as a company, etc. We had a few experiments, one of which is about how do we use AI models to be able to understand scientific papers. So we basically looked at the challenge whereby how do we converge, for example, research papers from healthcare with research papers in maths, research papers in physics. So very, very different fields that basically use pretty different English, right? If you don't understand the English in biotech, you're not going to understand the English in physics, for example, right? There's two different worlds. But we wanted to converge all of that, because the alternative would have been that, okay, we had to build AI models for physics, AI models for healthcare, and that would have been a complete catastrophe, because at the time, we didn't have the sort of infrastructure that we have today that makes life so much easier for us to deploy AI. We had to every time concoct some pretty crappy, weird server concoctions to make this AI kind of work. I mean, it sends shivers down my spine even thinking about it. It was bad. It was terrible. So we thought, no, we can't do that. We need one model, one single AI model that has the ability to converge all of these data sources from various subject areas in one place as a one data set. But that was a challenge. How do you break these language barriers? So nebulized algorithms invented a language. Now, we did not tell it to invent a language. That's the challenge that we actually gave the AI models. Okay, we need to figure this out. Let's challenge it. Let's challenge it to figure out how you manage with this challenge. How do you deal with that challenge? It invented the language. We were like, whoa, did he just do that? You invented the language. And of course, we started doing a lot of R&D in that. We invested a lot of money into that. And in fact, that was the foundation of one of our frameworks that we're selling to enterprises right now called the data stack, which is basically a secure data layer that we add as a knowledge layer above existing AI models so they can deploy AI in a specialized area of, whatever business that they're running in. Let's say if it's a healthcare company, there's a highly specialized, very well trained, safe as well AI model for their application. So our experiment, powered by AI, invented a new business model, not just a new language and a new business model. This is called innovation, as opposed to is it Elon Musk's Grok, apparently, that people saw, not him, to be fair. He didn't say that. I didn't see him say that, so I don't know if he has or not. I mean, you can comment below. But Grok, people were saying, Grok can generate amazing images of Mickey Mouse. Do you know how easy it is to do that? Because if you think about AI is garbage in, garbage out, right? Data in, data out. It just regurgitates what you train it. So if you train an AI model with 5 million images of Mickey Mouse, guess what? It's just going to generate images of Mickey Mouse. Well, I mean, duh. Whereas, let's think about this one. Use the similar analogy or idea that we use for my company. Let's say we feed the AI model with 5 million images of Mickey Mouse. And we say to the model, hey, this is Mickey Mouse. This is what it looks like. If a user asks you to generate Mickey Mouse images, do not generate that because of certain regulations, copyright laws, blah, 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 blah. You train it with that. So if somebody asks you to do it, try and generate something that looks similar but different enough so that you don't get sued. Guess what? It's not going to be that easy. It's a very hard thing to do. Trust me, guys, it's a hard thing to do. I've just explained what we did with my company. That took us time, a lot of money, and it's very, very hard. But guess what? If it figures out how to do that, that will be a phenomenally smart and indeed safe AI model. That's innovation. And that's the reason why I walked away from the whole VC thing, and I'm not inviting any investors into my company, because what VCs want, generally, not just VCs, but investors in general, when they invest in your company, they want an exit strategy within 3 to 5 years. If they're generous, it's 7 years. Yeah. And if you don't achieve that, basically, they can pull the plug on your company. And that's a very big problem. That's why I keep on saying that if you keep on pushing this basically shareholder first approach to AI, you're not going to get smart AI. You're going to get lazy AI. It's about rushing some models out that look impressive, but they're not particularly useful because you don't want to follow any regulation. You're not putting real innovation into it. You just want to feed it with slop, generate slop, and boom, yeah, everybody's happy. Yeah, okay, share prices are going up. Yeah, kaboom, happy days. You call that innovation? That's not innovation. But this is what these people want. That's the sort of AI these people want. That's the sort of tech future that these people want. So what's the tech future under the Trump administration? The paradox of voting for right-wing governments. Because again, we had a right-wing government for 14 years. So one of the things that happened here as well, they're going about, we want our country to be innovative. We want growth, blah, 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 blah. Yet, they did not invest in any research and development. In fact, I did a whole video about this in here where I described why it is that we're failing the deep tech sector, because we're not investing enough. Basically, because of the issue that I've just highlighted about this, trying to rush your innovation to basically keep your shareholders happy. And if they're not happy, you try to get rid of regulation and generate bullshit. But deep tech companies, say like DeepMind, I mean, we can't create companies like that anymore. And in fact, DeepMind itself would have died if Google did not acquire it. Why? Because right-wing governments do not invest in innovation. And here's a report from Nature, which is one of the top scientific journals in the world, where they highlighted in Europe, for example, how far-right governments seek to cut billions of euros from research in Europe. Anti-immigration parties are pushing policies that are hostile or indifferent towards science. And that's been the case for a long time. Now, this report was published on the 28th of October, 2024, literally just before the election. Now, I'm not going to go through that because obviously we're talking about the American election. But I've got the whole article in the link in the description below for you guys to check it out. In America, a similar report was published by the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, or ITIF, where they're saying the conservatives weaponize government against tech. And this report was published on October 7th, 2024. And I'm going to go over the key takeaways because it's a very long report. Again, you guys can read it. But the key takeaways are as follows. Conservatives historically have viewed, quote unquote, big government as the enemy. But today's anti-tech conservatives are willing to use it as a cudgel to punish big tech, which is kind of funny considering that X was the big tech behind this current election. But hey, hypocrisy is rising beautifully in the conservative movement, apparently. Anti-tech conservatives blame tech companies for corrupting children, censoring conservative viewpoints, surveilling conservative users, and wielding their market power to push left-leaning ideology. Right. Despite their differences, anti-tech conservatives and many liberals propose similar solutions, such as more government regulation, more antitrust enforcement, and more liability for tech companies, but not the current conservative movement, mind you. Despite their differences, these anti-tech solutions come with high costs for America, including economic costs, free speech restrictions, reduced ability to compete with other countries, and missing out on the benefits of technology and innovation. This is literally what's in Project 2025. So please explain to me how you guys are going to innovate again under Trump. Bitcoin. Yeah, good luck with that. Ain't gonna work. And finally, the report also highlights that policymakers can more effectively address the legitimate issues conservatives have raised with pro-innovation solutions that focus on maximizing the benefits and minimizing the risks associated with technology. In other words, regulation. which of course they're not going to do. Oh man. So there. You guys not going to innovate. You guys are not going to innovate. It's the literal Brexit shit show again. It's trustonomics all over again, only for America. And, you know, as somebody that absolutely loves America, I love America. I've got very good friends there. I've got family there. I do business with America. And it's like, I'm very sad to see this. Now, I know there are a lot of political arguments for and anti, etc., but, you know, I'm not getting into that because this is not a political show. Like I said, I'm promising you I'm going to bring up political experts, but again, where we can discuss the elements that are related to AI and innovation, because rather than just purely politics. I'm sorry to say this. I kind of alluded to this point back at the beginning of this episode, where the world will absolutely take advantage of that. You see, one thing that happened during Brexit in Europe, of course, you hear people talk about politicians, diplomats that, you know, we're all partners, we're all friends, and, you know, we love each other, blah, blah, blah. But my God, once Brexit happened, the European countries took full advantage of that. I mean, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, the guy was a banker. Basically, a few blocks away from the Google campus building that I was based at with my previous startup alongside DeepMind and all the others, right? He knows what the tech sector was like in London. He knew the Silicon Roundabout of London. And he did say when he became president, he said many years ago that he wants Paris to be the new London. But when Brexit happened, he said he wanted Paris to take over from London. And my God, it's taken over big time. The AI ecosystem in Paris is thriving like magic. Not to mention, we lost so many European workers. I personally know quite a lot of European entrepreneurs, amazing entrepreneurs that left London, moved back to Europe. So when you hear Trump and the MAGA movement going about that they want to, you know, round up all of the immigrants and ship them away, guys, your economy will be destroyed. We lost amazing talents. Our economy was destroyed, and the same thing will happen to you. And you know what? Companies like mine, countries like the UK and Europe, we're going to be waiting with open arms, open doors, and say, bring us the talents, please. I'm telling you, I'm going to go after every single talent I can get my hands on from America, because a lot of them will leave America if this does happen. And this is the reality. Don't expect the world to simply say, oh, America decided to be an isolationist, and therefore we're just going to try and go after America. Oh, no. Basically, what I spend the time doing with a lot of tech entrepreneurs in the UK, Europe, even Asia, like I said earlier, we were basically talking about how can we all partner up and start basically preparing ourselves for being on our own. There is definitely now, I mean, I don't know if it's a positive energy per se. Maybe it's more of a reaction to say, look, America is not going to be there for us. Well, it's time for us to stand on our own feet, which I have to say, I kind of like the idea. I think Europe has been far too dependent on other countries for far too long, America especially. It's time that we put our money where our mouth is when it comes to innovation. We talk a lot about innovation, and you know, the UK, we actually finally started to put our money where our mouth is, and then we decided to bring Brexit to fuck it all up, and now we're back to square zero. And I think right now, the UK has absolutely a once in a lifetime opportunity to revive the tech sector in the way that it used to be pre-Brexit. Because one thing as well, the government has highlighted, Keir Starmer, our prime minister, he made an interesting comment recently where he didn't dismiss us rejoining the EU, although it's not about rejoining the EU, but how do we build much closer relationships with the EU, the closest relationships we've ever had since Brexit. Not rejoining. Rejoining is a completely. I don't think that will happen. It's a ridiculously complicated process. It's gonna take. If we ever decide to rejoin as an EU member, it will take many years. Like we don't have that much time. But we can absolutely, almost in an instant, break all the barriers that the idiots conservatives have built over the years between us and Europe. Create new trade deals. Perhaps even join the single market. We can do so many different things almost instantaneously that will revive our innovation market like that. And that's thanks to Trump. So the silver lining, I'm afraid, for us is the fact that we're going to take advantage of America's fall. But don't get me wrong, that does not mean that our economy will not suffer. The American economy, like I said earlier, is so powerful that if it goes down, it will drag all of us down with it. But the question is, if we are going to be so dependent on America, we're going to crash big time. Right now, the UK will the economy will be dead in the waters if America's economy goes down. So we absolutely need to basically stand on our own feet so that we can just survive, survive the downfall. That's basically the key. And that's the reality. Like I said, I know there are Trumpsters out there that will come back at me like they did on LinkedIn. Oh no, blah, 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 bullshit. Yeah, they're not providing me with any data to prove me wrong. Well, like I said, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm providing you with the data. I've given you the explanation. And again, what I've just said about what happened here in the UK, that's history. Google it. That's exactly what happened. And it's just repeating itself again with you guys by exactly the same people. As I've just highlighted, it's the same people, right? Not some imaginary entity or aliens. The same people. Walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. There's a 99.999% that it's a duck. All right? So I want you to think about that, although it's too late. You voted for that. But on a final note, just to end this very quickly, one of the things I want to say as well, I know it's a bit of a side note, but as somebody that's been through the Brexit pain, a lot of people were saying things like that they're ashamed to be British, they're ashamed to call themselves British, etc. And I've seen so many people on social media, which kind of breaks my heart. Like I said, I love America, I love Americans, right? We're cousins, right? And so when I hear people say, oh, I'm ashamed to be American, oh, I hate my country, blah, blah, blah. Guys, please don't do that. Don't do that. This is your identity. See, when Brexit happened, I kept on calling myself a British European. I'm a proud Brit. I'm a proud European. Yes, these ghouls have basically ripped my European identity against my will. But no, I'm not letting them do that because I see myself as a European and I am European whether they like it or not. That's your identity. That's my identity. That's who I am. Don't allow these people to make you doubt your identity, to make you doubt who you are, because it's your identity and who you are will help you rebuild whatever the damage that your country will go through. And I'm saying it will go through it. It's not a hypothesis, it's a fact. I'm sorry to say it, but I'm telling you this because I want you to be ready and I want you to be able to rebuild or at least minimize the damage. Campaign, do whatever you can do. See, I do what I'm doing here because I feel that I wanted to speak out because nobody else is doing it. The mainstream media aren't particularly useful. I think what we've seen this time around, I mean, they were totally useless. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that I would, again, another side note, very quick, but I think this is the podcast elections. Yeah, I think Kamala Harris made a humongous mistake not to get herself on Joe Rogan and all the other big podcasters. She should have done that. I know people are saying, oh, maybe it's high risk, etc. Well, as an entrepreneur, I am telling you, if you don't take risks, you can't reap the rewards. Now, who's reaping the rewards? Trump. That is one thing that I would say I have to give credit to Trump and his campaign. They absolutely pulled the blinder here. This actually reminds me very much of what Barack Obama did in 2008. At the time, The social media were kind of still new. People didn't understand it. But the Obama campaign was saying, no, we need to go after the voters on the social media world. And it was even called, it was the social media elections or the Facebook election. It was something along these lines. The other side, the Republicans were like, oh, we need social media. No, we'll carry on, talk on CNN and Fox News or whatever. Yeah, he won with the landslide. Same thing happened here. The Trump campaign said, nah, forget the general media and even, social media, because social media is useful, of course, not completely useless, but we absolutely need to be in podcasts because that's where everybody is. Because who's listening to the news? I'm in my late 40s. I had this conversation with my wife this morning, and we tried to remember when was the last time we actually watched this, CNN or BBC or something. I haven't watched. I swear to you guys, I think maybe the last time I watched BBC News was probably during the Brexit campaign, basically during the count of the votes, of the ballots, and that was like in 2016. That's it. I don't remember. I don't think I've ever went back to the BBC or any channel for that matter. I read the web. Everything for me is on the web and podcasts. In fact, the reason why I set up this podcast specifically because the general media are not doing a great job at all when it comes to reporting about AI, the good, the bad, and the other side of AI. All you see is like, oh, this company created this new AI. Oh, so amazing. Oh my God, this company just raised how many millions of squillions of dollars. Oh my God, the world is going to change. And it's like, what? The general public, they're like, we don't know what the fuck you're talking about. More importantly, obviously, I serve companies and I serve businesses. They don't know what these people are talking about. They come to us asking us to help them to basically figure out their AI strategy. Because the media, they're not doing anything. They're like, okay, you're telling me that this thing is amazing. Well, how is it amazing? Why is it amazing for me? They're not helpful. That's exactly the same thing here. They'll go on about Kamala Harris is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And maybe she is, but what was her policy exactly? You see, I know it's simplistic. I know it's kind of like, people kind of think they try to be a little bit sort of intellectual about it. But I think we live in a world where politics is not being intellectual. It's or even about being smart. It's just about the message that just works. And where do you push that message? To whom you are pushing this message? And basically the Democrats, they thought, let's just do it the old school way, go to Fox News and go to CNN and stuff because apparently some people give a shit. Whereas the 99% of the rest of the population, they're everywhere else. And they just ignored that. So maybe, I know there's a lot of sort of reflection and people kind of, the blame game amongst the Democrats seem to be starting now. I don't follow any political party. I don't believe in being any of these things. I'm not even a centrist. I just follow what I think is right. But going back to my original point here, please don't attack your own identity because that's what they want. Your identity is who you are, is what makes you you, is what gives you the power to claim your country back. Do you understand that? Claim your country back. Your identity will help you do that. I can't say that, okay, I don't want to be a European anymore, or I'm not a proud European, or I'm not a proud British. Well, then who am I then to claim my country back? I want to claim my country back. I want to claim the years that we had, the amazing years that we had in London that was making London, not just the Silicon Valley of Europe, the Silicon Valley of the world. I was one of the people that was campaigning for that. I wanted London and the UK to be the Silicon Valley of the world. And Brexit came in, destroyed all of that. And that was the end of it until now. Because of Trump, now we have the opportunity to make the UK the Silicon Valley of the world again. But this also depends if our government is smart enough to smell the coffee now and forget pleasing the Brexit ghouls and actually go back to Europe and start building relationships so that we can absolutely start taking full advantage of America's fall. It's competition, guys. I'm sorry to say this. I'm not celebrating your fall, not at all. But at the same time, it is business. It's like in sports. I used to be a professional athlete. It's like if my friend who plays for the opposing team, if he falls down and sprains his ankle, I'll be very sad about it, but I'm not going to stop the game. I'll carry on. I'm going to win the game because that's just competition. So that's just how it is. That's just how the world works. So on that note, again, please, please, please unite, guys. Unite. Togetherness, union, being proud of who you are as an American will get your country back. I promise you. It's going to take time. It's going to be hard. I know we've been here for 14 years, guys. At least in your case, you only have 4 years. We had 14 years of this. Yeah. So yeah, you've got a chance to recover quickly and deal with this very quickly. Right. But it's very important that you stay strong, stay positive, and more importantly, I said this for the third time now, be proud of who you are as an American. Okay? Much love. Thanks so much for listening. You know what to do, guys. Like, subscribe, share, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Hopefully, we have some really good news to share with one another. All right? Peace.